Hey Emily, let's see. Okay, I'm looking at your email. I'm glad you're enjoying the feedback videos. Let's see. Well, thank you for your kind words. In the exam condition, I tend to ignore some minor and simple errors. Do I have any idea? Well, my only advice is just awareness is the first step. If you're aware of the mistakes that you keep making over and over again, that's your first step in preventing them. So that's why the corrections are so important, and even writing down that error correction list is another reason why it's so important, because then when you're writing you can say to yourself, oh yeah, there's that mistake again, let me make sure I don't make it. So um, that's my one real advice for you. Does reading it help? I don't know what you mean reading it. I'm not sure what you mean. Reading the essay? I'm not really sure what you mean. But as far as avoiding those little mistakes, just going over your error corrections, your list, and then the videos, just going over them over and over again to study from them to see what kinds of things that you're consistently doing. It's probably the best step. Okay, let's take a look at what you wrote today. This is the one about getting married and having children in your 30s. Let's see what you said about this. The issue that ever more couples around the world chose to marry and start a family when they reach 30 years or over has grown in importance over the past decade. All right, there's something strange here, and it's with your tense. This is a situation that exists, so it probably makes a lot more sense for this to be in the present tense because it's just a simple fact that occurs. So let's try it like that. The issue that ever more couples around the world, and I don't know about this, the issue that. Let's see if we can fix it a little. All right, let's leave it. Let's leave it like that and see what happens. The issue that ever more couples around the world are choosing to marry and start a family when they reach 30 years or over has grown in importance over the past decade. There we go. So not simple present. It should be present continuous because it's something developing right now. It's something happening as we speak. So that's probably the best tense. Okay, in my opinion, although people should enjoy their rights as to when they expect the baby, it is a worrying trend which needs our attention. All right, I'm glad that you looked at it like this. Although this in the end this, they should enjoy their rights. I don't know what you mean by this, and I don't care for this when they expect the baby. It should be when they have a baby, and people should enjoy their rights. I think you mean they should be free to decide is probably a better way to express this. So although people should be free to decide as to when they have a baby, it is a worrying trend which needs our attention. And then I think we're okay. Let's see. Excuse me. Late marriages and giving birth to babies can adversely affect people's health. All right, careful. So you want late marriages and late give. It's not so much the late marriages, maybe, but I think it's the late birth, which is the problem for people's health, at least. Okay. Um, let's see. So, let's get rid of marriages here and just say late birth to babies can adversely affect people's health. The central reason behind this is more appropriate here is that with human beings, most notably women aging, an array of body functions are on the process of remarkable degradation, two of which are fertility and delivery. All right, again, there's some awkwardness in terms of your expression here. An array of body functions um, begin to degrade remarkably, I think would be better. And then that's fine. As a result, the older females are, the bigger the risk mothers and their infants are put at, including hypertension and Down syndrome. Countless studies and empirical research have revealed that the women who are pregnant at 30 are threatened, there's an extra syllable in here, an EN, are threatened with higher risks of, you don't mean abortion, you mean miscarriage. Abortion is when a person willingly gets rid of the baby, but a miscarriage is when this just happens naturally. Then those conceiving at 25 by 30%. Okay, Now, so far, the only thing you talked about here is giving birth later. You haven't talked about marriages. Yeah, I know you mentioned it here, but you didn't really talk about it. You threw it in there, and I also don't feel like it was totally appropriate, which is why we took it out. So, um, either way, there's no mention at all about getting married later. All right, but let's move on and see what you said. Furthermore, I believe that this trend will also impose on local authorities undue financial burden, singular burden. Specifically, the higher likelihood of older pregnant women and their babies who are more susceptible to different illnesses, okay, means a lot more government funding, investment in the healthcare system, ensuring the proper treatment. This is unquestionably putting a stricter strain, not a stricter, a heavier strain on government sectors. Based on the data published by Japan recently, dealing with the emergencies and surgeries related to older mothers has resulted, ED, in a significant increase in demand for medical staff, taking up 24% more public money than 10 years ago. Okay, so you did it again here. So here you were talking about their health, and here you were talking about the finances. Therefore, it is clearly conclusive that while people are entitled to the freedom of when they tie the knot and have a child, rather than conforming to certain social norms or others' expectations. No, so you don't want a while here. Get rid of the while because the while implies that you're going to have some sort of contrast later. So let's try it again. Therefore, it is clearly conclusive that people are entitled to their freedom as to when, I don't like opting for, as to when they tie the knot and have a child, rather than conforming to certain social norms or others' expectations. However, taking the whole picture, that's awkward too, taking the whole picture to look at. However, looking at the whole picture, this practice brings far more, way more is far too conversational. Okay, we use this in informal speech, but not in an academic essay. So this practice brings far more drawbacks to not only couples, but also local authorities. Therefore, I tend to regard it as a negative trend and am not in favor of it completely. Okay, so your conclusion is okay apart from the grammar. But again, here's the biggest problem with this essay for me. It's the fact that you didn't mention marriage. Look at the way the essay is phrased, get married and give birth in their 30s. It's not just about giving birth. So what you could have done here, there were a bunch of things you could have done. First of all, you absolutely had to mention getting married, okay? And the positives and negatives of this. Or negatives, I shouldn't say and negatives, the positives or negatives about this. Because you've got this and here, which means that they absolutely expect you to talk about both. You didn't, and this is going to be a huge problem for you in terms of your task achievement score. How could you have done it? I don't know how you feel about getting married in your 30s. I think one really good way to do this is the following. For example, let's say you're in favor of people getting married in their 30s, but you're against them giving birth in their 30s. You could have had, on the one hand, people getting married is wonderful because they're more mature, they're more financially stable, they've lived their lives and they're ready to settle down, etc., etc. However, having birth, what am I saying? Giving birth in your 30s creates a whole host of problems. And then you could have gone into those. Okay, that's one way you could have done it. Because this was all the one side. This was all basically all negative, really. And now here's the other thing, now that I think about it. You mentioned here that they should enjoy their rights and they should have rights, but you never really talked about that, did you? You mentioned it in your thesis, but you never actually developed it. So reading your thesis, one expects you to develop this side of people's rights and people's freedom to choose and so forth, but you never actually explored that at all anywhere in your essay. You just mentioned it in the introduction and the conclusion. So my advice is don't write it if you're not going to explore it in your body paragraphs. Okay? So that was the second problem. Now, again, talking about marriage, how you could have put it. Let's assume again, all right, let's assume that you don't think it's a good idea for a variety of reasons. You could have had one paragraph talking about the negatives of marriage in their 30s and again another paragraph about the pregnancy, about the giving birth. Or you could have had a paragraph about the positives of getting married and having children in your 30s, and then the negatives about getting married and having children in your 30s. So like I said, there are a lot of ways you could have done this. Unfortunately, you didn't do it, and so it's going to be a problem, like I said, in your task achievement. The other problem is this, your thesis and your conclusion, where you imply that you're going to talk about people's rights, but you never actually did that, okay? So, and lots of grammatical errors throughout. So let's move on, because I spent a lot of time on this, and talk about this rainfall one. The graph provides a comparative snapshot of the precipitation in 3 countries in the year 2018. You don't have to say that, but you can just say in 2018, and then you're fine. In January, Scotland took the lead, with the number being about 120 ml, closely followed by England at around 110. Meanwhile, the rain volume of Wales was below 50, standing at the bottom. You didn't even need to say that. Get rid of that. It's superfluous. Just stop there at 50 ml. 6 months later, despite the multiple fluctuations, England and Scotland both saw their rainfall peak, no S, at approximately 130, about 10 higher than that of Scotland, whose highest number, no comma, emerged in March and October respectively. What? That's weird. Hold on. You just said England and Scotland, and then you said higher than that of Scotland. Did you maybe mean Wales there? Wales, 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 yellow. July and November. So I'm confused here. England and Scotland saw their rainfalls peak at around 130. I'm assuming you mean here. Then Scotland. I think you do mean Wales. I don't know. I'm very confused. What happened in March and October? March, Scotland. Okay. So the rainfall's peak. Oh, maybe here you meant Wales. Maybe that's what the confusion is. England and Wales both saw the rainfall peak at approximately 130, about 10 ml higher than that of Scotland. Whose highest numbers? Yes, that's what you meant. This is a mistake here. You meant Wales. So you could see that it created a ton of confusion for me. Okay, from August to the end of the year, the amounts of rainwater in England and Scotland showed a similarity. They varied significantly from about 140 to roughly 90 in October and about 50 in November, respectively, before climbing back. Okay. By contrast, a reverse trend was observed in Wales, which witnessed a plummet to nearly 40 during August and October. Although the number doubled in the next month, it dipped again in December, much less than England and Scotland. In conclusion, while the peaks of rainfall in England, Scotland, and Wales appeared in different time frames, summer tended to be the season when it rained the most. Okay, I like that. That's nice. What's really strange for me here is that you spent a lot of time describing the last 4 months of the year. You spent about a whole paragraph just on the last 4 months, and you really just kind of swept through the first half of the year very quickly. I mean, what you did is you mentioned January, and then you ended up talking about July. So that felt kind of strange to me. That was really strange. And then even here, so yeah, look at that. You've got 2 sentences for the first 6 months of the year. So that was strange. And then everything else was just about from July on. I found that a little strange. And kind of unfortunate too, because in fact, some of the lowest numbers were in that first half of the year. Did you even mention it? Well, you mentioned Wales being really low, but that's it. So I found this treatment kind of strange. I would have done it probably a little differently, although I do agree with you with splitting the year in half. That probably is a good decision to make. But I would have tried to treat each half of the year equally. Okay? All right, we spent quite a bit of time on this. Some of the things you wrote were good, but like I said, some of it had some problems, basically with the way you decided to select your data. That was the biggest problem for me, but I did like your overview, or in this case, your conclusion. That was well done. Yes, okay. So go ahead and correct these, Emily. Let's meet back here with your next set of essays. I'm looking forward to them. Think about the suggestions that I've made in this video correction and, you know, obviously correct these accordingly. So wishing you good luck with your next essays.